Hi, everybody. Good evening, good morning, wherever you are. Welcome to the Healer Archetype Live Training. We also have Bree here with us today. We are going to dive into the healer who is associated with Cancer Rising. So I'm going to give it just a few minutes or a few seconds to see if anybody joins me. Otherwise, I'll jump right into the charts. But a couple fun things before we dive into all of the juicy tidbits of the healer. So I just sent out an email inviting you to join me next week for a free masterclass. It is called the New Paradigm Platform, and I'm so excited. I've been waiting to invite you until the perfect name came in, and it did last night. So I'm really excited about this class. We're going to talk about how to really look at your human design chart and your astrology. We're going to be looking at your midheaven as well to get guidance on where you're designed to show up on the internet in a way that feels really good for you. So, you know that feeling when you're at home and you just feel like yourself and you feel safe and you feel cozy and you just feel like you, versus if you're somewhere and you're in uncomfortable clothing or you're around people that you don't really like, or you're somewhere where it's just like cold and you're not yourself, right? You're like stiff and you feel awkward and you don't know what to say and all of that. Like that happens on the internet too. And the human design chart mixed with our astrology chart as well gives us really beautiful guidance on that. Um, so come join me next week. It's a 2-day class. So day 1 and day 2 are going to be different content. We're going to record it and send out the replays afterwards so you can catch them then, but they're only going to be available for a limited time. And then I'm going to take the replays down and put them as a bonus into one of my paid programs. So this is going to be a really good time to come and learn exactly what some parts of your chart mean and get your creative juices flowing. And we're also going to talk about brand positioning and brand messaging because that's really essential as well, in addition to finding somewhere. Hi, you guys, it's so funny with Facebook. For any of you that do lives on Facebook, I'm sure you've experienced this too, but some days Facebook lives are like my friend and they work really well and it shows me who's on and it shows me comments, and some days it doesn't work at all. So I have 3 different tabs open. I have a system now, and I just went to my second tab and I see some people are actually on. So hi everybody. And yeah, the archetypes will be up forever. Yep, good question. I'm putting them into, there's a guide section in this group, and there's live trainings and live readings, and the archetype readings are all going under that guide for the live readings, and they'll be up forever. Davina, hello. Hi, Caitlin. Great. Awesome. I can see comments kind of. It shows me 4 at a time. So if you ask me a question and I don't respond to it, or act like I didn't see it, it's because I didn't. So feel free to just copy, paste it, and put it back in so I can see it again. Because on my little live page it's being funny, but that's okay. All right, y'all. So let's talk about the healer archetype. Hi, Anita. Good to see you. So tell me, for those of you that are on live with me, tell me who is the healer archetype. If you are Cancer rising, then you are the healer. We're going to talk about her and we're going to talk about what that means for your brand, and we're going to do some live readings. And if you've watched any of the other archetype readings so far this week, I've been going into different aspects of the human design chart. I'm not just looking at the same thing for each archetype. I'm looking at different parts of the human design chart that are the most relevant and most important for that archetype. So I'm excited for what we're going to explore for the healer today. It's going to be something different that I've never talked about before in this group. Davina said she's the healer. And if you're watching the replay, let me know if you're the healer. I always love to see how this is resonating. Davina said it's finally resonating more. Good. And that's really how I have dedicated myself to learning these archetypes, is first and foremost doing the work. Anita said she's the healer. Good. So the way that I really have found that I love to study and work with the archetypes is I like to read about them. I like to listen to content about them. There's not that much content out there about them. Sadly enough, there is a whole like Carl Jung Archetype Institute in Chicago, I think. But I think you have to go in person. So maybe one day I'll do that. But I love to study them. I love to consume outside material about them. But then I love to work on awakening that archetype within myself. So you as a human, you have access to all of the archetypes within you. And it's a really healthy personal journey to work on strengthening different archetypes within yourself. What we're talking about in here is your brand archetype. So that's going to be one archetype, and that's going to be the one that's associated with your rising sign. Lisa said, my husband is Cancer rising, so is mine, and my daughter too. Trying to learn more about it. And for him, that is such a beautiful, beautiful intention. I love that, Lisa. Layla said she's the healer. Great. Layla, I'm glad you're on today because you're a good example of how the healer doesn't have to be an overt healer, and we'll talk more about that in a second. But anyways, one of the things that has been invaluable to me in this pursuit of learning about the archetypes is really hearing other people's stories. So the more that you can share with me about how you experience this energy and how you experience this archetype, and if the things that I'm saying are resonating with you, and if they're not, I would love to hear that too. But the more that I can hear about your personal story and your personal experience with it, the it's invaluable to me. So open invitation to share as much as you want to. But this is such a fascinating topic, and I'm excited that y'all are excited about it too. Anne said, my son is Cancer rising. Cool. Okay, so let's dive into the healer. So archetypes go by many different names. Archetypes, you've probably heard me say this before, but I feel like I can't say it enough, even for myself. Basically, what archetypes are is it's human coding. We are all born with these archetypal programmings, these archetypal stories programmed into our psyche. And based on how we were raised, based on our childhood, based on our experiences, based on society, based on a lot of different things, certain archetypes might be more active within us. They might be stronger within us. And some archetypes might be dormant. They might be asleep, right? That doesn't mean that they can never awaken again. And in fact, the more examples and the more models we see of those archetypes, the more we can awaken dormant archetypes within ourselves. But archetypes are interesting too because they can show up in this like really deep spectrum, from the lowest expression, meaning like immature, right? Weak, just kind of gross, all the way to the high expression, the full wisdom that is available for that archetype, the full magic that is available. So it's our job though to really recognize, is this archetype even active in us, right? Can we connect with this part of ourselves? So consuming outside material about the archetypes, like the content that I give you, is the best place to start, because I find that the more that we can read about the archetypes and listen to trainings about the archetypes, the more that it reminds us of this identity that we already know because it's within us. So then once you start to get familiar with this vibe, right, the essence of the archetype, you really can start to awaken this psyche, this identity inside of you. And what I mean by that is you start to think as this archetype thinks, right? You care about the things that this archetype is programmed to care about. You're motivated by the things that this archetype is motivated to care about. You have fears attached to these deep archetypal fears. So at any given point in your life, at any moment that you've already experienced, and any moment or every moment you will experience, some archetype is going to be activated within you and be the dominant archetype of your identity in that moment. So your rising sign, it's also known as your ascendant sign, but this gives us insight into who your soul came here to be. So the way that I like to think about it is this is the highest expression of potential that's available for us. Yes, we absolutely can awaken and work with other archetypes in our life, for sure. That's a really healthy thing for us to do. But in terms of like our story and our legacy and our work and our impact and our influence and our success, right, and our fulfillment, the rising sign is the answer to all of that. So that's why I love to work with the rising sign for the brand archetype. And when you show up in your brand as the full expression of your archetype, that means that what you are doing is you are automatically calling to and magnetizing that archetype in somebody else. It's such a fascinating system, and it works. It is the tool, it is the system that I have found that works 10 out of 10 because it's human coding. So when you can understand this within yourself, it means that you now have the capacity and the empathy to understand this with others. Okay, so with Cancer rising, aka the healer is known by many different names. The traditional archetypal name for her is the caregiver, but for our industry, for the spiritual entrepreneur industry, or area rather, that we're in, I think the healer is such a perfect name for her. So she's known as the healer, the angel, the good Samaritan, the friend, the caregiver. A lot of times, Layla says, I love that concept. A lot of times with the caregiver, that is really focusing on this archetypal programming to care for other people. So that's a huge foundational part of the healer archetype is she is here for other people. She wants to give her gifts so that other people can prosper, right? Other people can be restored. Other people can feel whole. So that's a huge driving motivator for her regardless of what name we're giving her, right? Regardless of what expression she's manifesting as. So those of you that are on with me or those of you that are watching the replay who are the healer, do you resonate with that? Like, are you motivated by other people, by other people's health, right? By other people's wellness, by other people's happiness? And this can show up if you're a mother, right? And or a father, if you're a parent, if you're a caregiver, like a traditional caregiver of some sort, you are constantly caring for and thinking about and pouring into your kids. Let me know if that resonates with you. If you are a traditional healer, let's say you're a Reiki master or you are a massage therapist or you do other kind of energy healing or physical healing, maybe you're a doctor, maybe you're a nurse, right? And you're in the traditional medical system, and you are by definition a healer, like does that resonate with you, that motivation to care for others? That is the prime motivation for the healer, but it's also one of the prime wounds for the healer, ironic enough, right? So, what tends to happen with the healer archetype is that she is so, let's see, Davina said, what's interesting for me is I left grad school in international affairs and said I wanted to do something hands on. So, I went to massage therapy school. Whoa, I didn't know that. I didn't practice. I got an office career in management, but there was always a draw to healing in some way. I became a health coach. I started a wellness program where I worked. My favorite thing to do in my role as a meeting planner was selecting menus that were adaptable to a variety of healthy eating styles. Eventually, I left corporate 8 years ago to start a solo healing business, starting with Reiki. I love that. And let me ask you, with that story, like what do you think your primary drive for all of that was, for those decisions of going to massage therapy school or, really like pouring yourself into the menu selection role of your job? Like was it driven by the need to care for others and like thinking about others? So the thing that tends to happen, and let me know if this sounds like y'all's story, but the what tends to happen with the healer archetype is she's so dedicated, right? She's here to pour into others that she tends to deplete herself in the pursuit of pouring into others. So, one of her biggest fears, one of her biggest wounds is this fear that she's being selfish anytime that she does something for herself. So, we can see this in the um, very abundant story, or very prevalent, I guess that's a better word, prevalent story of mothers who are just constantly with their kids all day, right? Pouring into their children, staying up all night with them when they're sick, if they're infants, right? Feeding them through the night and that kind of thing, and forgetting to take care of herself, realizing that she hasn't showered in 7 days or she hasn't gotten more than 45 minutes of sleep at one time in since she can remember. She hasn't sat down and had a proper meal because she's constantly just eating the leftover crackers off of her toddler's plate, like that kind of thing. And when she does get a moment to herself, whether her spouse, takes the child and is like, go get a massage, or her mom comes over to babysit so she can go to the grocery store by herself, or something like that, she feels guilty. She feels wrought with guilt because there's that archetypal fear that she's being selfish. So, Layla said, I consider my business and brand as the older sister. I'm the oldest in my family and I have a tendency to care for others. Yeah, that's a beautiful expression of the healer for sure. Davina said what motivated her with all of those decisions was direct connection with people and seeing them thrive. That's the healer. Kate said that's true. Yeah, so if that is reflective of your story, just, maybe in your business, maybe with clients, you realize like, oh my gosh, I have no boundaries. Clients are emailing me at 11 p.m. at night and I'm responding even though I'm exhausted and I feel guilty if I don't answer. I feel guilty if I don't look at my Voxer messages for 2 hours or whatever. That can happen for sure with work in the work capacity. But if you've ever felt like you have sacrificed your health, your well-being, your sanity because you are taking care of other people, that is such an archetypal storyline of the healer archetype. When I was a stepmom of adult children, I gave so much that took away from my life. Yeah. And it's like it's a really tricky situation because when you're not caring for other people, you feel unfulfilled, right? You feel like, wait, I am here though to give to others. But we've heard this a million times, but I think looking at it from the archetypes angle makes it kind of hit home more. As the healer, you are here to first and foremost heal yourself. That is how you are designed. That is how you are programmed to be the most potent, most powerful, strongest healer that you could possibly be, is by restoring yourself first. So, the thing with the healer archetype, one of my favorite keywords for her essence to describe her and to understand her is the word restore or restoration. The healer understands, first and foremost, the healer loves people. She loves people so much. She has a heart for others. It doesn't necessarily mean that she loves every single human that she encounters, but just people in general, right? And that might show up more specifically as like she loves children, or it could even show up as she loves animals, but she loves souls, like she loves other souls. And I forgot what my point of saying that was. It will come back to me in just a second. Oh, restoration. So the healer understands deep in her core that every single soul, every single person, every single heart, every single mind is innately worthy and is innately whole. So the healer isn't here to fix somebody, and that's not her mission. And that kind of language and that kind of pursuit is never going to resonate with her when she's in the high expression. She knows and she innately understands that every single person is whole. There are no holes. There's nothing to fix. There's nothing um to make better, but there could very well be something to restore. So I think that restore really paints a beautiful picture of like a hole in someone versus a wound in someone. And we see this a lot in modern day marketing where people are selling to, that they are falsely using language and their messaging to make it seem like someone is missing something vital, right? Like a part of them is missing, or like they have a hole in them somewhere that they need to then buy this product or buy this service to then be restored, to be made whole, right? And that's not at all how the healer thinks. So the healer just naturally, with the new paradigm of business and selling and service, is very aligned to that because she's full of integrity, because she could never ever picture a human like missing something. That's not possible in her belief system, which I think is such a beautiful aspect of the healer. So the healer is here to restore. Let me know if that is resonating with you, just that kind of reframe of something's missing and something's wrong versus something is wounded, and there is potential for restoration, right? So I like to imagine the just the scene of like a really like a dead field, right? Like imagine a wheat field that's just completely dead. All of the grass is dead. There's no life there. It is basically like ashes. What the healer does is she comes in and she restores it. So what was dead, what was ashes, what was just black and, devoid of any kind of color, any kind of life, she comes in, and with her restoration and with her healing touch, all of a sudden that field is in full bloom. It's green, it's vibrant, it's verdant, it's full of life, it's full of abundance, it's full of growth. So at her core, the healer is about abundance. And she does that through already knowing that there isn't anything wrong and there isn't anything missing, but there is something that needs to be healed and restored. So that is like the imagery that I always see with the healer, is people that, their souls, their hearts, it feels like it's a dead field, and that's how they feel. And then after the healer's healing touch, in whatever method that looks like, now they have this abundant, beautiful, like nourishing, life producing, blooming field within them, if that makes sense. That's lovely restoration. Yeah. Anne said renewed. Yes, renewed is a beautiful, perfect word for that. Yeah. So if any of you are familiar with the goddesses, Demeter is such a beautiful example of this archetype. Demeter is the mother, and she is the goddess of wheat and goddess of harvest. And all of her stories, all of her myths. There's one where her daughter gets kidnapped, and it's this whole thing, and it's really heart wrenching. And she is just mourning the loss of her daughter, and all of the wheat fields die, and she's the only one that can bring them back to life, but she does. So she's a really, really good example of the healer archetype from like a different perspective, right? We can look at the archetypal story within. Um, but like I was saying, the thing that is really going to help you as the healer archetype in your life and in your brand is focusing on where you need to be renewed, where you need to be restored, right? What feels like it's died inside of you. Or not even, it doesn't even have to be that dramatic. What feels like there could be more room for abundance, more room for vibrancy, more room for life, right? And so, thankfully and obviously, we can use our human design chart for that. So, I want to do something a little bit different with y'all that I haven't done before in this group on any of the mini readings or any of the content I shared, but we're going to explore your Chiron gates today. So I'm going to put a link to a chart on my website that's going to show your Chiron placements. The chart that I had on my site that I normally use doesn't show Chiron. So if you don't already know your Chiron gates, go ahead and pull your chart for me, and you can do this on the replay and for the live, but I think this is going to be really fun. So Chiron is known as the wounded healer. How perfect, right? And Chiron really shines light into our deepest wounds. So I just want to let you know, you do not have to share what comes up on your chart with me if you don't want me to speak to it. Looking at our Chiron can be very triggering, and it can be really intense because it's our deepest wound. So giving you fair warning here. If this feels like a lot, you don't have to share this with me. But if you want some insight and you want to share those numbers with me, put them in the chat and we'll start to speak to them. Okay, so also too, just a little guidance. Once you pull your chart, you are looking at the very bottom of those 2 rows of numbers, and you'll see a symbol that looks like a circle with a K like attached to it on top. And just let me know what those whole numbers are next to it, and we'll dive in. Okay, Davina, thank you for being brave and for sharing. Okay, so Davina said restoration is big in my chart with gate 40 as well. Yep. Gate 40 is my north node, Lilith, and unconscious Saturn. Oh gosh, yes, 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 yes. Restoration is huge. And you're the healer too. So I love that. I love that you can see that theme in your chart. Okay, so Davina said hers are gate 2 and gate 24. Okay, so it sounds like then you've explored this a little bit. And I would love to know too, like what you've uncovered as you've worked through this, if you want to share. So, gate 2 is called the gate of receptivity, and this is the divine feminine. So, this one's really, really, really interesting for a Chiron wound. And also, too, just a little bit more info about Chiron. So, as the wounded healer, this is a part of our psyche, a part of our life, a part of our experience, a part of us that is a wound. But you don't have to heal it if you don't feel called to or don't want to, or if it feels scary. You can go through your whole life living a fulfilling life, right? Living a good life without ever diving into your Chiron. What's going to happen though is it's going to be like you are walking through life with an open wound on your body somewhere, or like a really deep bruise. And if something brushes up against it, you're going to automatically like respond in this really defensive like way, right? Because you're in pain. Think about an animal. When an animal is in pain and they get like, maybe they're trapped and their leg is hurt or something like that, and someone is coming up on them, they freak out, right? They become feral. So that tends to be our reaction when something, whether someone says something or, there's an endless amount of examples of what could trigger us around our Chiron wounds. But just know that, like, if you never dive into the deep work of healing your Chiron placements, it's just going to be like you're walking around with an open wound, which you can do, right? You are more than welcome to do that, and you can live a very, very fulfilling, very full, very happy life. But healing is always going to make you stronger, better, right? And more, what's the word? Just experienced. Okay, so my comments to y'all, it's showing me 4 at a time, and so I'll probably ask you to share your Chirons again because I can't see them once they go away. But gate 2. So gate 2 is the gate of receptivity. This is the divine feminine. So Davina, have you experienced just tragedy, trauma, wounding around receiving, like allowing yourself to receive, allowing yourself to be taken care of. This could absolutely show up as like trauma with sexual stuff, or things in your childhood with physical assault that you were not consensual with, that kind of thing, for sure. But it can go a lot deeper. So if you're struggling with allowing yourself to receive, if you feel like you're exerting a lot, if you are doing a lot of the work, if you're making a lot of effort or putting in a lot of effort, if you're taking a lot of action, if you're hustling, yet you're still not receiving in the way that you desire to, that is totally that Chiron wound showing up. So gate 2, it's all about in the high expression, once that wound has been healed and once the the wound isn't open anymore, it looks like really feeling safe. Like nervous system regulation is a huge part of gate 2 and healing that energy there. But really truly trusting in a way where you feel safe, not just saying like that you trust, but actually being able to trust something bigger than you, right? The divine, God, the universe, angels, however you want to say it, your higher self, right? The cosmos, whatever phrase resonates with you there. But you'll know that that healing is there and it's working and it's available when you feel like you can, like, what I always imagine with this is like laying back in the water in the ocean, right? And like doing a back float and feeling safe. Not feeling like, oh my gosh, a bunch of water is getting in my ear. Oh my gosh, I'm sinking. Like I can't trust this. But like really fully relaxing and fully surrendering to that pose so that you actually float. Because with floating on your back, if you're scared, if you're not trusting, if you're tense, you're gonna sink. It's like super super ironic and such a good example of this energy. But when you fully surrender and you fully relax and you fully give in and you let the water hold you, that is that trust, right? And that's exactly how gate 2 operates. So if you're noticing that you're tense in areas, if you're guarded in areas, especially with Cancer rising is when she's feeling attacked, when she's feeling wounded, she tends to really go inside and then slip into that victim mode. That's a really easy tendency for this archetype, and that's all of you since you're the healer. That is Cancer rising. So really allowing your emotions to come through, feeling safe and expressing your emotions. Let me know if that's resonating with you. Davina said, I'm a swimmer and love floating in the ocean. Great example. Yeah. And then with gate 24, so gate 24 is called the gate of returning. And this one means that the way that you're designed to think about things mentally and process things and understand things like with your brain, because in human design, especially the way that I teach it, I talk a lot about like putting your mind in the driver's seat, but our mind has such a vital role. Obviously, we need it, right? So anytime stuff shows up like with mental stuff, I always want to make sure that I'm not making it confusing. Like we want to use your brain, just not for decisions. So the way that you are designed to really understand things and understand things on this deep level, especially with all of the storytelling energy that's in your chart, Davina, gate 24 means that something happens, right? Or you learn a new subject, or someone tells you a story, or whatever, right? There's some kind of catalyst, some kind of event. And the way that you're really designed to fully comprehend it for yourself and fully digest it and understand it in only the way that you can is by returning to that thing over and over and over in your brain. So it's like your brain is spinning on something. And the low expression of this energy means that you become like obsessed with thinking about something. You can't get it out of your head no matter how much like tapping you do or how much whatever you do to try to like get your mind off of it. It just keeps returning, right? That's why it's called the gate of returning. So if you find yourself like, the example I love to use for this one in the low expression is if you had a conversation with somebody and maybe like you're embarrassed with how you responded, or maybe you're angry about it and you feel like you weren't able to fully express your anger, you weren't able to fully express your needs and your part of that conversation. So now 3 days later you're in the shower like running over the conversation and like giving yourself new dialogue of how you responded. I've done that for sure. And I'm sure all of us can relate to having done that at some point. But gate 24 kind of like constantly does that in the low expression. The high expression is really feeding your mind complex situations, right? Asking yourself tricky problems or like purposely learning a new skill, purposely learning like some deep esoteric knowledge like human design or something like that. So you're basically feeding your brain. It's like a cow with its cud. Is that what it's called? Like the thing it chews on. Like your brain needs something to chew on. It needs something to feed on. Otherwise, it's going to find something in your life. So the high expression of gate 24 looks like reading, studying, right? Diving into something, or like solving a problem. Sudoku, if you feel like, you know what, I'm like sick of learning, I just want to do something fun, like go buy a really complicated puzzle, or like do some Sudoku or cross stitching or something like that. That can be really powerful to like guide your mind in a good place. But if there is something you're trying to figure out, if there is some epiphany or some breakthrough, like the way that your mind's going to do that is to replay it on repeat over and over and over until it just poofs. So, all of that to say, with that being connected to a wound, if you're finding yourself like mentally fixated on things, that's a big one. Or if like another thing can be if you have experienced rejection around your opinion, right? Maybe you have this brilliant breakthrough around something and then you share that with someone or you share it with people and they reject it. They don't get it, right? Or they say it's wrong or they say it's stupid or something like that. And now you're closed off from sharing your insights. So, all of that is definitely connected with Chiron and gate 24. Davina said it was part of my healing last year when I lived in the Caribbean, simply floating. Oh my gosh. Did you know about your Chiron and gate 2 when you were doing that? I love that. Davina said, I wish you could see that I am laughing, ruminating, and reviewing over a situation. Yeah, ruminating is the word. The perfect word for gate 24. So let me know, like with the wound part, if that feels like there's some kind of something in your life where that hurts. Okay, I didn't know gate 2 back then. Fascinating, right? Isn't it so cool how our intuition just guides us? All right, y'all. So all of your Chiron placements that you shared, I can't see them anymore. So share them with me again, please. And I will go through the next two that I see. So remember, the point of this is the more healed you are. Anne said Gemini rising, but really resonating with the healer too. Okay, Kate said 60 and 60. Cool. So with Chiron and gate 60, this is a good one for Chiron. So gate 60 is called the gate of limitations. And the gate of limitations, this is such an interesting and such a fascinating energy to me. And it's really vital and it's really a very beautiful gift. So basically, in the high expression of gate 60, you are able to really hold a vision, right? Hold this future idea, hold this future desire, but be really realistic about where you are right now. Most people don't have both of those things. Most people, like, there's people that have their head in the clouds, which is also a beautiful gift, right? None of this is wrong or right. It just tends to be how people are designed. So some people have their head in the clouds where they're really good at dreaming. They're really good at like imagining and seeing the final moment of this big plan, right? They're really good at feeling into that thing manifesting, but they're pretty bad at seeing like, okay, like, well, this is where we want to be, but this is where we are right now, right? They tend to have like denial about what's going on in their life right now, and it's this like almost delusional fantasy kind of, and that's the extreme side of the spectrum. But the other side of it is like where someone is really, really practical minded and almost cynical to where they cannot dream. They will not allow themselves to go there. They will not allow themselves to desire into the future because it might hurt too much if they don't get it, right? The disappointment would feel too heavy. So they only focus on what's right in front of them. And they tend, and again, this is the other side of the spectrum. They have this really cynical nature about them. So they don't really have any optimism about the future. And so they keep recreating what is exactly in front of them. Gate 60 gives you both, where it's like, okay, I'm at point A, I want to be at point B, but I can see right here that I have to solve this immediate problem first before I can even take a step forward. So gate 60 is really gifted at the baby steps, right? What is the next right move? What is just the next right thing? So if you tend to get overwhelmed, if you tend to like feel like you want to do all this stuff in one day, somebody with gate 60 can be really powerful to help you see like, well, what's the next right step, right? What's the next baby step? With gate 60 as a wound. So with Kate, let me ask you, and you've shared your mission statement with me before and with this group before, and I think it's just so incredible. And I think what you're doing and what you're envisioning and what your vision is just it's so needed and it's so powerful. But gate 60, the limitations, right? If you feel like there is some kind of barrier around you, if you feel like you would be unsafe, if you would be too exposed, if that barrier were gone, almost like I'm sure y'all have heard of these studies before with animals, right? Where animals are in a cage and then they open the cage and the animal stays in the cage because they would rather stay in this confined space that's familiar and safe rather than venture outside of their constraints because they don't know what's out there. So if you kind of feel like that, if you're not taking action towards your dreams that you can clearly see because it feels unsafe, then that is a wound of gate 60. Also, too, if you've ever strayed outside of the boundary lines, so to speak, and the reason I'm using the boundary lines in the cage example and imagery for gate 60 is because that is the essence of it. It believes in boundaries, it needs boundaries, but it's really good in the high expression of continually expanding those boundaries. So, magical realism is a key word for gate 60. But if you've had experiences in the past where you went outside your comfort zone, right? You broke down those barriers or you like actively started to push against your own edge so that you could break through it, then something really bad happened, or something really embarrassing happened, or something really painful happened. And now that's what your brain tells you over and over whenever you think about trying again, right? Or like putting yourself out there again. That could absolutely be a wound of gate 60 showing up. So let me know if that's resonating with you, Kate. And then if you have any kind of other examples or if anything else is coming up around this, I would love to hear. Kate said, that is so like how I feel. Great description. Yeah, so gate 60, dive into that more. It's a really fascinating one. I mean, it's called the gate of limitation. So at first hearing it, you're like, that doesn't sound very good, but actually it's really, really good. Because you are really designed to be safe while you pursue your dreams, right? And help others do so. All right. So Layla said hers are in gate two and oh, two and two. Yeah, that's perfect. So we talked about gate two with Davina's Chiron as well. So that one is the gate of receptivity. That is the divine feminine. So Layla, I think you're in some of the same spaces that I'm in online, right? Where there's like feminine energetic conversations and that kind of thing. So with gate two, flow, trust, faith, all of those more flowy, more abstract parts of life, intuition, creation, that kind of thing, all of that is associated with gate two. So if you find that you are way more comfortable with the masculine energy stuff, right? The taking action, the to do list, the structure, the strategy, the movement, right? We talked about this the other day in one of these trainings. You were talking about busy work, right? And how it was yesterday, right? With Gemini Rising. You were talking about how it's really easy to bury ourselves in the busy work so that we don't have to be alone with ourselves. So all of that is so resonant, so aligned with gate two, with the wounds that come with that. Also, too, like actual female wounds, if you've had any kind of trauma in terms of like, sexual assault and all of that really, really, really deep, serious, painful physical things, that's absolutely could be aligned or connected rather with the wounds of gate two. So let me know if that's resonating with you. Okay, somebody else share your chirons with me, chiron placements. Other places too, just for anyone that wants to go deeper into this, into your own exploration of where you have room to heal as the healer. And also to remember, or not remember because I haven't said this, but also too, like where you heal is where you're then going to be designed to heal others. So this is really good work to do for just getting content ideas or getting offer ideas or getting clarity on your brand message, right? Or getting clarity on, well, how can I alchemize the painful things that have happened in my life into the beautiful things that now I'm called to guide others through. Davina said, I used to be so in my masculine when I had a career in DC, I burned out. Then I went super into the flow without structure and have been learning how to find a balance. I love that. That is such a good articulation of those wounds that come with gate 2. Yes, I love that. I love how you were on one side of, like, your pendulum was on one side and then it swung to the other, and now you're finding that balance. Oh, that's so good. What a journey. And you're healing. Oh, so good. Okay, so some other places to look in your charts for really good personalized insight into where places that I can heal. Chiron for sure. Our Pluto placement. So Pluto is at the very bottom of the chart, and it looks like it on my chart, it looks like a P and an L fused together, but it also can look like this circle with like a U under it and a line. But you can always just Google Pluto glyph or Pluto symbol and it will bring it up, and that can be really helpful. So Pluto is a generational planet on the chart, which means that it's not a personal planet. However, it's still really relevant to you and to your life, but also with the people in your generation, right? So your peers and people around the same age as you. So if your clients tend to be the same age as you or the same generation, that can be really powerful to get insight into what your audience is struggling with as well. In the Magic is Real masterclass that we had last weekend, I talked about Pluto and Chiron and Saturn in reference to your brand story, because it really reflects your own healing journey, but it also reflects your client's healing journey. So this is super relevant for the healers personally, but then just makes your brand story that much more powerful and that much more resonant. So another good place to look is Saturn. Saturn is our life, is like the great teacher, right? It's the life curriculum that we have been signed up to go through. And oftentimes the way that Saturn energy works is it tends to throw us into things that we don't want to go into, so we get thrown in kicking and screaming, and that's painful, right? Getting forced into something by life can feel horrible. There's a lyric in a Taylor Swift song and she says life is emotionally abusive, and I was like, I agree with that sometimes, right? Like that feeling of like life, just life in general is emotionally abusive. That is totally Saturn energy. So it can be really triggering to look at your Saturn energy. It can, your Saturn placements, it can be really painful to relive it. But what it's really showing you is the lessons that you've gone through, right? What have you learned by going through these hard things, by walking down these really scary paths? And now where are you called to teach others and to guide others? I have read some say that we never heal our Chiron moon. I didn't like that or accept that it isn't possible. Um, yeah, I don't think so. I think we can absolutely heal our Chiron wound. I think it will always be part of us. I think the memory and the pain will always be there, but I think that it starts to alchemize and become like the story itself, right? Like just like we talked about in Magic is Real, you can't really have a transformative story without the pain, without the challenge. So I think that Chiron, I don't think we forget it, but I definitely think we can heal it. Davina said I got a great insight with Pluto last week. Did you? You want to share? And some other places to look in your chart for your personal healing journey would be your undefined centers. So our undefined centers in our chart are the white shapes on the chart, and that is where we pick up outside conditioning. That is where we have really been holding on to and identifying with other people's stuff. So other people's belief systems, other people's fears, other people's ideas of what makes human beings worthy, other people's feelings, other people's like just everything. But the issue with that is when we don't realize that it's not ours, we start to create our life from that, right? We start to make decisions based on these fears or based on these beliefs or based on these limitations. And then all of a sudden you wake up one day and you're like, whose life is this? Is this my life? What? Who am I? So if you're ever feeling like that, that is conditioning summed up. And so the more that you can dig into your undefined centers and really let go of that conditioning, meaning you get clarity first and foremost on, wait, why am I thinking this? Why am I feeling this? Why am I believing this? I don't really believe this. Isn't what my soul believes. And then reprogramming your belief system, right? Like intentionally pouring in the beliefs that you want to believe, intentionally getting familiar with how you feel first and foremost, and not creating a life based on other people's energy. So that's always beautiful healing. Okay. Does anybody else want to share their Chiron placements with me? If you're on live, feel free to. Otherwise, we will dive into some more healer stuff. Okay, so with the healer archetype, with the whole archetypal brand archetype system, you are here to serve that same archetype. So the healers are here to heal the healers, essentially. So this makes a lot of sense, right? If you are an overt healer, if you do something like Reiki or massage therapy or even like past life regressions and stuff like that, right? That's really healing. And healing is, um, it's a result of it, right? You are selling healing and you are here to heal and awaken other healers. Let's talk about it though. If Davina said, do you work with Lilith Point? Would that also be one to look at? So I have not really dove into that and the work that I do. I've listened to a lot of content around it. But I mean, yeah, especially around like with gate 2 stuff that we were talking about, I think Lilith could be a really powerful guide for that for sure. Um, Also too, if you are feeling called personally to dive into it, and like the way that I like to use the chart, whether it's our astrology chart or our human design chart, is if there are certain aspects that are calling to you and it seems like they're jumping off of your chart at you, absolutely, that's your invitation to explore that. Yeah, I think that that could be really powerful for you for sure. Lilith is having a moment in a good way. I love the Lilith energy. I'm excited for when I get like a breakthrough or a channel of how to bring all her into this work. I've been seeking info about it for years now. Okay, Donna said her Chiron is 22. Thanks for sharing, Donna. Okay, so gate 22 is called it's called the gate of, what's the official name? Grace, I think. But gate 22 is all about grace. It's all about like beautiful grace, like if you think of a ballerina on a stage, that is like graceful, flowy, like swan like movements, like that kind of thing. But it also goes a lot deeper, and gate 22 is about like divine grace, right? Forgiveness, meaning that we do not have to be perfect, nor are we expected to be perfect as people to be worthy. It means that you can show up and make mistakes and still be worthy, and you are worthy no matter what. So that like grace, like pouring that upon yourself, I actually really love that this is your Chiron placement, Donna. Oh, there's so much depth here to explore. So the first thing I would ask you to explore for yourself, and you can answer in the comments if you want, but you don't have to, is to really look at like, have you really forgiven yourself? Have you really given yourself that divine grace, right? So what I mean by that is if you went after a goal, or if you showed up in some big way and you messed up, whether it was intentional, right? Maybe you were in a low moment and you made a bad decision, or maybe it was just a complete accident, but it still resulted in some kind of hiccup, some kind of result that you didn't want, right? Maybe you failed at something in your life. Maybe you failed at something a lot of times in your life. This could be in a work, like career, business perspective, or personal, like relational perspective, in whatever scenario it works, but really looking at like, where is there room in your life to pour grace upon yourself? And that is so much easier said than done, right? And so that really, really, really stems and starts with worthiness work. Do you currently believe that you are worthy? With Chiron and gate 22, like that is such a serious question to ask yourself. If you say to yourself, if you look in the mirror and you say, I am worthy, what does that feel like in your body? Does it feel like truth, or does it feel like this feels like bullshit? This doesn't feel true to me. That's so, so, so insightful. And like I said, Chiron is hard. It's triggering, it's challenging, it's painful, but to explore that. So that's where I would start with gate 22. And then also, where are you still holding on to anger towards yourself around things that you've done? Whether, like I said, whether it was really intentional and you were just in a bad moment and you wanted to be mean, right? You wanted to be like petty or whatever the situation was, like you still deserve so much grace for that. Or if it was just a complete like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened, like that was not my intention, you deserve so much grace for that. And then extending that onto others. Are there your parents, maybe your siblings, right? A former partner, a current partner, friends, whoever, like close people in your life. Is there anything that you're holding on to where grace, you could pour grace onto them? So that's, grace is one of those words where it sounds really lovely, right? It sounds really beautiful and it is, but actually extending grace to someone, giving grace to someone feels really bad because you have to forgive them. And forgiveness, although it's the most healing thing in the world, it doesn't feel good when you just want to be petty, right? You just want to be mad. You just want to hold on to that resentment and that anger. So those would be the places to dive into with Chiron and Gate 22, and explore that. Davina said, wow, worthiness is such an important aspect to help humanity with. I agree. I think if every single human, I truly believe this with all my heart, if every single human on this planet actually believed that they were worthy, period, if they truly believed and felt in their body, in their bones, in their mind that they were worthy no matter what, I think the world would be healed. I think the world would be fixed. I think all of the problems would be solved. Donna said, I carry a lot of shame and find it hard to forgive myself. That is that Chiron in Gate 22. Wow. What a beautiful reveal. Hmm. I'm excited to hear what else unfolds for you with this. Yeah. Oh, human design is so amazing. It just shines light on things that we would never have acknowledged. Definitely don't feel worthy when I say that to myself. I do call bullshit. So that is something I think I shared this. I don't remember because I've done a lot of trainings the last couple of days, but I shared my personal story with this. I have a completely open heart center in my chart, which is like all about worthiness. And my entire life, I did not believe I was worthy at all. And I went on this because of human design, because I saw it. I went on this healing journey, this deconditioning journey around my own belief and my own self worth. And I said, I am worthy. I am worthy. I am worthy to myself every single day for probably a year until I actually believed it. And I still have to work on it every single day. So it is a massive journey, but it's the most transformative journey you will ever go on. Yeah. Oh, I love this so much. Donna, are you the healer archetype? Oh, this is so good. And then it's, it really does give so much clarity of like, this is my healing message. This is what I am here to help others heal within themselves because I have been through it. I have the scar to prove it, right? That's why Chiron is so interesting because you have the scars to prove it, but they're healed and you are restored, right? You are renewed. Okay, let's see how we're doing on time. So we have about 9 minutes left. So those of you that are on live, do you have any questions or anything in your chart about Saturn, Pluto, Chiron, or your undefined centers that you want me to speak to? Because you can definitely put that in the comments and we'll dive into that. Davina said, it was Saturn that I had the breakthrough with, 47, alchemy of the difficult life experiences and owning our shadows. Big theme for my life and bringing that into my offers. I love that. That is so good. Okay, so if I'm going to keep my eye on the comments, but I'm going to keep going through the chart and talking about different places to explore and different themes for the healer. Donna said, me too, open heart center. So with that open heart center, some things to explore with your conditioning is the first question is, what did your parents teach you about worth, about what made a person worthy? So, did they teach you that every human was worthy no matter what? Or did they teach you, and this isn't to put any blame on them at all, because they were taught what they taught you, right? But, or were you taught like making a certain amount of money makes you worthy, or being a certain skin color makes you worthy, or having a certain job title makes you worthy, or being a certain weight makes you worthy? Were you taught anything like that? And if that's the case, that's conditioning, right? And that is such a beautiful place to start with understanding why you believed. If you have in why you believed that and why you picked up that conditioning. Oh, Donna's the queen. Hi, Marianne. No, you don't have the replay. We're still live. Um. So what was I gonna say? I was gonna say something, but I forgot. It will come back to me. So let me dive into different parts of the chart though that you as healers can look at to see where can I like start to do some shadow work, where can I really dive in and see what's here. So with your open centers, I'm just going to talk about the themes of those centers for you. So at the very top of the chart, the very top triangle is called the head center. If that is white on your chart, chances are there's some healing that you have available to you. So the head center is in charge of basically like our unconscious thinking, right? The thoughts that we don't have any control over and that just kind of pop into our mind. So if you have any kind of mental health issues, if you feel like you're battling with your mind, if you feel like there's a lot of unconscious stuff that you've pushed down and that isn't like at the surface, deep healing work is going to be really restorative for the subconscious mind and for your mental health and that kind of thing. So if you struggle with inspiration, if you struggle with getting ideas, if you struggle with like basically if you feel like your brain is always asking you really horrible questions about yourself, right? Like, why are you so stupid? Why did you make that decision? Why did you mess up so bad? If you notice that your questions that come into your brain are like really aggressive and it's like a bully energy, there's so much healing to be that is available for you there. And this, what I'm talking about, is deconditioning. So the next center is the ajna center. That is the triangle right above the head center. The ajna center is essentially in charge of our conscious thinking, right? Our conscious mind. So it's the thoughts. It's the ability for us to think about our thinking. So if we're like, whoa, that was an obtrusive thought that just came into my mind, that's not true. That is the high expression of the ajna center. So the ajna center in its high expression looks like really being clear on choosing what you intentionally want to believe. The low expression of the ajna, if you notice yourself, if this shape is white on your chart and you notice yourself being really defensive about like if you get in an argument about someone, or if you get in an argument with someone about something and you find yourself just wanting to prove that you're right, and like you realize halfway through the argument that you're actually wrong, yet you're still like doubling down and you're arguing and you're trying to prove that you're right. If you feel like you cannot admit defeat, if you cannot say, you know what, I actually don't know the answer to that question, let me find out for you. If you cannot say, like, you know what, you're right, I'm wrong, if that feels impossible, that is the low expression of the Ajna Center, which means there's conditioning there and there is healing available. Next is your throat center. So if this square, it's like right in it's the third shape down, and it's a square. If that is white for you, that means your throat center is undefined. So if you have issues speaking your truth, if you feel like you haven't found your voice yet, if you feel like you don't like your voice, and I mean like your literal voice, but also being able to stick up for yourself, right? Being able to talk about what you need, that kind of thing, that is open throat center conditioning for sure. Also, too, if you find like yourself having these angry outbursts where like you yell and you don't want to do that, right? You like things are coming out of your mouth that you don't want them to come out. If it feels like what comes out of your mouth is out of your control, that's also throat center healing that's available. Also, too, if you're uncomfortable with silence, or if you get really anxious, if there is attention on anything other than you in the room, right? If you feel like you always have to have the attention on you or else you don't matter, that is totally throat center conditioning, and there's healing available there. Next is the diamond right in the middle of the chart. That is called the G center. If that is white for you, that means it's undefined, and that means there's likely conditioning there. So the G center is in charge of our personal direction and our personal identity. So if you struggle with your own identity, if you hate who you are, if you wish you were her, if you are always trying to, try on different identities of different people, that kind of thing, and it feels bad, right? It's fun in the high expression of the G center when it's undefined. You are like this chameleon and you can step into all these different identities, and it's a superpower. But if it feels bad and you feel like you hate yourself, that kind of thing, that is the low expression, and there's conditioning and there's healing available there. Next, we have the heart center. So the heart center is the little triangle just off to the right of the G center. So the heart center is in charge of self-worth, and it's in charge of value and motivation and commitment. So if it's white for you on your chart and you find that you don't believe that you're worthy, seriously say that to yourself. Look in the mirror and say, I am worthy, and see what that feels like for you in your body. You might be shocked. You might find, oh my gosh, I don't believe that. That is healing that's available, and there's conditioning because in that heart center space. If you find that you are constantly trying to prove your worth, prove your value by doing, right? By actioning, by getting a certain money milestone or a certain job title or that kind of thing, a certain amount of Instagram followers, like that kind of thing. And when you hit that number, you're like, okay, now I'm worthy. Now I've proved I'm good enough. That is conditioning in the heart center, and there's healing available. For the solar plexus, so that is the triangle to the far right of the chart. If that's white for you on your chart, the solar plexus is in charge of our emotions. If you have any kind of emotional issues, you're numb, you are ashamed of your feelings, you won't let people see you cry, right? You are a stoic, right? This used to be my story. I was so stoic. I wouldn't show my emotions to anybody because I had conditioning believing that it was weak to show emotions. So if you, even when you're by yourself, if you won't admit that you're in pain, that you're sad, right, that you're angry, whatever it is, that you're happy, we also numb out to good feelings. That is so solar plexus conditioning, and there's so much healing available around your emotional health and your emotional intelligence. Next, we're going to look at the sacral center. So the sacral center is the square that's the second from the bottom, right in that middle column of shapes. Sacral center, if it's white on your chart, or if you are a projector, manifestor, reflector, um, it's an easier way to figure that out sometimes. That means that you might be overexerting yourself, taking physical action until you just drop on the ground from being exhausted. It can look like any kind of overing, overeating, overdrinking, overusing of drugs or drug use of any kind, really, oversexing, right? Any kind of addiction to like spending, addiction to sugar, addiction to alcohol, addiction to sex, like that kind of thing. And you're doing something, you're taking action, and it's detrimental in your life. You are overing. The example I always use that seems kind of innocent, but it's like a good example of sacral center conditioning is like if you're at dinner with friends and there's a bowl of chips on the table at the restaurant, like chips and salsa or chips and queso or like chips and dip, and like everyone has stopped eating it, and they stopped eating it a while ago because they were like, okay, I'm full, like that's enough for me, I'm complete, and you're still like rah 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 rah, because that's my story for sure. That is that undefined sacral coming out. So there's healing around that for sure. But really, burnout, exhaustion, just feeling depleted all the time of your energy. So such a sign that there's so much healing to do physically around like this is like physical healing. So really physical modalities, Reiki, massage, that kind of thing, crystal healing can be so helpful for the undefined sacral. And then at the very bottom of the chart, we have the root center. And that is, if it's white on your chart, that means that you might have really unhealthy methods for dealing with stress and dealing with pressure and getting yourself started, right? If you find that you are just always procrastinating and you're not able to get yourself started on new projects or on things that you're supposed to do until like you're up against the, what's the phrase, you're up against the gun, is that it, like where you wait till the last minute, right? I used to do this in college with papers due tomorrow, I don't start it till 2 a.m. and then it's just horrible, right? So if you find yourself in any kind of patterns like that, that is root center conditioning, and there's healing available for sure. Also, if you find yourself responding to other people's urgency and other people's pressure. So like for example, if you're shopping at the store and the sales clerk is like, try on these jeans, these would look great on you, and you try them on and they're fine, but the salesperson's like, oh, it's so great, I got like I'm so glad that I found these for you, and they're like putting a lot of pressure on you to buy them, and then you buy them and you don't want to. That is you responding to other people's pressure, meaning there's conditioning there and there's healing available. And then finally, we have the splenic center, which is the triangle to the far left. The spleen's in charge of our instincts, our intuition, our spontaneity, our fears, our physical well being. So if you find yourself disconnected from your body, like with what your body needs, right? You need rest, you need fluids, you need vegetables, you need sunlight, anything like that. That means that there's splenic center conditioning. If you feel disconnected from your instincts, disconnected from your intuitions, if you feel like you are just like wrought with fear, right? Like these, like you feel almost paralyzed and crippled by fear, that means that there's splenic center conditioning and there's healing available. Okay, I know I kind of blew through all of those, but I just wanted to cover all of them before we ended. Okay, Donna said, what's a good tool to find more details about each of the gates? So I have a gate resource. Did you get that? Let me, in the Radiant Reader portal, you should have that in there. You can also just Google it, and then there are some human design books that go into the gates. Danelle said, oh, the Open G Center, who am I? LOL. Every morning it's a different facet. Yeah. Marianne said, I had an HD teacher tell me that I didn't know who I was because my G Center was open. And I was like, that is the most untrue statement about me ever. I was surprised she was so definitive as opposed to perhaps, or do you feel as if? Yeah, that's one thing with human design and astrology too. When anyone ever tells you this is certain, this is written in stone, that is not true. Human design shows a reflection of how like you're designed, right? And how tendencies are prone to show up, but nothing is set in stone at all. Plus, there is such a gift in all of it. In all of it, no matter what, even that undefined G center, especially that undefined G center. My favorite example of this, so we can disprove any kind of language about how the undefined G center is a deficit or a detriment, like false. Taylor Swift has made $1 billion because of her undefined G center. $1 billion and a legacy, right? And what seems to be a very fulfilling life and career. So the undefined G Center is the biggest gift that you could ever have, especially in the online business space as a brand. Marianne said, I would get straight A's on those research papers. Haha. Thanks, Kelsey, so much. Deconditioning and healing available. Yeah, for sure. And deconditioning, so what they say, like the human design people, they say it typically takes 7 years to become fully deconditioned. I think that we can start to see benefit immediately, like a minute into it, just from the awareness. But I also think that it's a lifelong practice as well. But 7 years is like the rule of thumb of like, okay, like I've done such good work, like I'm a different person. It has something to do with like our cellular regeneration and things like that, like physical, biological stuff. So I think that don't like, don't take that 7 years. While it is true, don't take it like as it doesn't have any effect until 7 years, or even, okay, it's been 7 years now, I'm done. Exactly, free will. Yep, totally. And mine is not undefined, it's open because my incarnation cross gates are all in it. Okay. Well, y'all, this was so fun. These trainings, um, these 12 days, first of all, thank you for allowing me to show up 12 days in a row and to email you 12 days in a row. I understand that that's intense. So the fact that you are here and engaging and listening just means the world to me. And also, we have a masterclass next week. If you haven't heard, I'll put the link back into the comments, but I would love for you to join me. So what we are doing in next week's masterclass, it's free. It's a 2-day masterclass because there's a lot to talk about, but we're going to explore your human design environment. So if you've watched my training before on the human design environment, I love that class so much. That has been our most watched masterclass, but the audio quality is really, really, really bad in that class. It's horrible. So what I want to do is present like a 2.0 version of it. So some of the foundational content will be the same, but I'm going to revamp it, give better examples, and then we're also going to add in the midheaven stuff as well as brand positioning stuff and messaging. So it is going to be like new. So I encourage you, even if you've watched the human design environments class, I encourage you to still come to this. The replay will be sent out, but it will only be available for a short time. So no pressure whatsoever if you're traveling or booked or whatever. But if you can come or you can watch the replays, I definitely would because it's going to be really valuable and really fun. Thank you. Okay. Marianne said, did you learn from OG Raw Teachings, aka firsthand, or a student of his? I learned from a student of his. So I took training through a program called, what is it called? Embodied by Design, and she worked with one of Raw's students, and I forgot his name. Kip, I think is her teacher. Yeah, his name is Kip. So, and I just loved her presentation of it and interpretation of it, and she was really good about teaching us to make our own decisions with human design. Just like your example, Marianne, is like, this means this. It's like, no, it doesn't. It could, or it could mean this, or it could mean this. So also too, I didn't realize this until like very recently, but I have the 1020 channel and I didn't really know what this meant in terms of like spiritual teaching. But I worked with a teacher, an astrology teacher who also has the 1020, and I was able to really see it in action and like be on the receiving end of it. But it means that it's almost impossible for us with the 1020 to be able to find anything negative, really. Like we can always find something magical and empowering and something as a gift in any kind of spiritual astrology or human design or any of that stuff. So I will I will die on that hill. Like every single human design chart is perfect and it's full of magic and it's a gift no matter what. Thank you, Marianne. Thank you, Donna. Awesome, y'all. Well, this was so fun. As always, tomorrow we're diving into the free spirit archetype, which is Leo rising. I think this one tomorrow is in the morning. I'm really excited about that because the free spirit is a really deep one and a really interesting archetype to talk about. But if you have any questions, any of y'all that were on live, or if you have any questions as you watch the replay, just put them in the comments and I will save this training to the guides. It will be in this Facebook group forever, so you can watch it on your own time. And I don't know why I'm saying that now at the end of it. I guess that is not relevant because you've already watched it. But anyways, have a great night, y'all, and I will see you later. Bye.